This is the realization of what started with a fish. You're going to see a different fish in about 3 minutes. But I have a mentor in this audience. So I need to tell a story before you see the fish. I finished Wharton in 1965 and went into the financial services industry. And my mentor is sitting in the audience, and he went into the financial services industry in 1963. And his name is Dick Hoey, and I saw him today. We gave each other a hug. Dick, stand up so everybody sees you. Back in the days, thank you. Thank you.
This is a wonderful, scientifically oriented conference. I've been to the prior ones, and I am so impressed with the scientific attitude that prevails throughout this entire conference.
Well, we appreciate that. I want to tell you something about Dick Hoey before we spend 8 minutes, and then you hear from Ken Lacavera, who is spellbinding. In planning this conference, it takes meetings. One of those meetings required me to put on a suit and sit around a table with 3 or 4 other people, Bob and others, talk about the money to raise and fund CAC. So we're sitting, it's 6 of us, it's a glass-topped coffee table. And we're sitting and talking and talking and sitting. And finally, after 2.5 hours, I said, wait. I said, I have to pee. So I said, let's take a break. I got up. Guess what? Everybody else got up too. And we come back, and we're sit down, and I look down, and my fly is open. Now, what do you do at a glass table? You're in a business suit. You're sitting, and your fly is open. Well, I'm going to tell you what you do. Half this room doesn't know this, but the other half, or most of them, has at least been in this situation once. So what you do is this. The first thing you do is you surreptitiously take the legal pad off the table, and you put it over your lap. You put your knees together like this, and you reach down underneath the pad, and you zip up your fly. And then you quietly go back to your meeting. Now, I know no one else in this room has ever had that experience. Okay, so the whole meeting's over. We get done, business is done. I called Dick Hoey, and I said, Dick, I'm getting old. I've been in this too long. And I tell him the whole story about the fly and the pants and the pad and everything. I said, Dick, can you imagine? I forgot to zip up my fly. And Dick says, when you get old, David, you forget to zip it down. You wanted a story, Bob, wasn't it? Why that slide? That trout was caught by me on a fly rod in a stream in Patagonia. And you're going to hear about Patagonia in about 5 minutes. That stream is fed. The stream itself is on a property called Kem True, and it's about 100 miles from San Martin de los Andes in Patagonia. If you go to Bariloche and go around the lake, a couple of hours, and then ford a stream, and you get to this wonderful estancia, and the trout fishing is marvelous. The water in that stream comes from the Andes, and the reason that trout was available and I could throw a fly to a spot, and that trout took it, is because the level in the streams are so low. The snow line in Patagonia in the Andes is 1,000 feet higher than it was 30, 40 years ago. When you visit Patagonia, Ken and I had a conversation about Patagonia. I've been there 20 times, to Chile or Argentina. If you go to the northern ice field and you visit the Blue Lagoon, you will see the markings on the wall from where the glacier was in 1972, and so forth. And if you go to the spot where it was in 1972, and you want to see an iceberg calve from the glacier, you got to go a mile in a boat now. Why the fish? You notice there's a hat, and you notice there's what fishermen call a buff that covers your ears and keeps you from sunburn. On one of my trips, I forgot my buff. So I had to wear a hat like this. During that time, which was perhaps 20 years ago, we had a little situation in the world. If you look at the tops of my ears, you will see the scars from the ozone layer because I didn't have a buff when I was in a trout stream in Patagonia. And I was in the sun with a thin ozone hole, and that's the situation. Now, why the ozone hole? Why open and frame a conference? We're going to hear all kinds of evidence. Bob said, tell a story. Well, I went like this, and I felt the scar on the top of my ear, and I said, we can do this. Why don't we have an ozone hole today? Because the world decided we're going to do something about it. Took a lot. A lot of people got burned. A lot of people hurt. And suddenly, there was a realization, we can do this. There's the proof. Go there now. The ozone hole's been closing. We don't put fluorocarbons in the atmosphere. We can do this. Next example. How many people in this room tend to gardens, deal with insects, do anything in horticulture, agriculture? Thank you. Do you use DDT? Why? We used to use DDT. Why don't we use DDT anymore? Why did countries in the world decide we're not going to use DDT anymore? Why? Why not? Kills mosquitoes. In some places in the world, it's still used to kill mosquitoes. Why don't we use DDT? Because we decided it goes up the food chain and stays in us. And if we get enough of it, it'll kill us. And it won't be pleasant when it happens. We decided not to use DDT. We can do this. How many people read at night with light? Turn the light on. Why don't you use whale oil? Ben Franklin did. Dick Coey remembers him. This conference is about what to do, how to do it, what are the tools. As Bob said, there'll be an investment piece. You can make a buck cleaning up the world. It's not easy, but you can do it. And I hear all the time, I'm giving up. We can't do anything about it. There's no way until we have a mass casualty. Ladies and gentlemen, we can do this. There's the proof, right there on the screen. Enough about Patagonia. You're going to hear about a real Patagonia visitor. I did it with a fly rod. It's a lot easier to catch a trout than it is to get a bone. We have a wonderful, spellbinding presentation in front of us. We have heard it at the conference up at Rowan University. The depth of knowledge and experience is marvelous. If you want the mystique of Indiana Jones, you'll get that too. So please welcome Ken Lockerbie. Ken.